Thank you very much, Madam Master of Ceremony, for giving me the floor. Thank you also to our hosts for organizing this together, of course, with the South African authorities and the SADC Secretariat. Thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you, Minister Davis. Thank you also to Mrs. Maywood for coming from Botswana. It is very, very nice to be here. And if I brought the sun, that is also a good thing. Dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, I have looked in the participation list, and on the occasion of the first anniversary of our EPA, we have a lot of very interesting people here today. We have organizations dealing with environment, with labor, with social rights, groups representing different companies, of course, who are involved with trade with the European Union, and people representing all the 6 SADC countries here to discuss how the EPA impacts this region, your country, and the life of the people living here. You have already heard this morning about the EPA, and also Minister Davis developed a little bit about the content and what it aims to achieve. I'm here not to talk about trade policy or to give you more details of the EPA in itself, but to talk about people. And then I would like to spend the rest of the afternoon listening to you. We in the European Union are strongly convinced that trade policies and EPAs are not about abstract growth figures. They are about people and how people on the ground can benefit from that. Because it is people who start companies, who run them, and who in the end take benefits from it. It is not about politicians like us posing for a nice photo. It's about involving people's lives in the SADC region, the countries there, and in the European Union. Civil society here, in this region, in South Africa in particular, has a lot to teach us Europeans. Civil society has been a force for good, with the civil rights movement being very strong and played a crucial role in the history of this country. And that is why I am very happy to be here. And let me give you 3 reasons. First, I do support very much an open approach to trade policy, bringing the wide range of issues together. And this meeting is a reflection of that approach. Since I began working as a trade commissioner for the European Union, or 2.5 years ago, transparency and openness has been very much one of my priorities. We published in the beginning of my mandate a sort of strategic document, Trade for All, where we underline that policy making needs to be inclusive, it needs to be transparent, and it needs to be based on facts. Because in the EU, all stakeholders, social partners, NGOs, business, and other types of non-state actors can channel their opinions to the EU representatives in a context of regular civil society dialogue. And once a free trade agreement with a partner is in place, we also create a participating body in that agreement. And just recently, we tried to deepen that policy in the European Union by presenting a new trade package, Balanced and Progressive Trade Policy, outlining the trade priorities for the next couple of years to come. So that all EU institutions, and I'm happy that we have representatives from the European Parliament here today as well, the Commission, the Member States, of course, delivers effective agreements through a negotiating process that is accountable, transparent, and inclusive. So we have decided to create a permanent advisory body with representatives of business, trade unions, environmental organizations, consumer organizations, what have you, can now apply to be in that body, who would advise us on a permanent basis when we negotiate trade agreements and bring in their special knowledge and experience so that that is taken into account in the actual negotiation process. And I understand that here there are different forms of interactions that has taken place between the government and civil society, and I really encourage you to continue in that direction. We can learn a lot from you, what you have done and what you are doing. The second reason that I'm happy to be here today is that trade agreement can only deliver real benefits to people if it is implemented together with the stakeholders in all partner countries. I think Minister Davies referred to that as well. It can not only be good on paper, it has to work in practice as well. And you certainly concur with me, I hope, that only by monitoring the operation and the impact of the EPA, we can make sure that it is properly implemented, that the objectives of the agreement are achieved, and that the benefits for the people, especially the most vulnerable people, are maximized. And this, for the EU SADC EPA, is what we have agreed to do, to continuously monitor the agreement, to do it through appropriate mechanisms and timing within the respective participative processes and institutions. We have also a very important dimension of trade policy apart from the economic benefits, and that is the sustainable development and the role of civil society in it. This EPA, as every trade agreement that the European Union concludes, contains a chapter fully dedicated to trade and sustainable development. It has a set of comprehensive binding provisions which are anchored in multilateral standards, notably International Labour Organization conventions and multilateral environmental agreements. And this is aimed at ensuring that trade is responsible and sustainable, and that it cannot undermine these values. And the institutional character of this chapter is designed to be inclusive through platforms where civil society can participate. And they are always included in the agreement as well. At domestic level, there are very often domestic advisory groups, mechanisms for each party to the agreement to request and receive inputs from representatives of the civil society on any matter concerning the agreement, and on the implementation when it comes to trade and sustainable development. The relevant provisions here ensure a balanced representative of economic, social, and environmental interests. And this follows the three-pillar concept of sustainable development. In addition, these chapters also establish a dedicated platform for joint dialogue with the civil society organization sites. And this platform is managed and shared by the civil society, which sets the agenda, discusses all sustainable development aspects under the trade agreement. And civil society then very often comes with recommendations to the parties of the agreement. And in the light of this, I am very determined to make this work also in the EPA with the SADC countries, so that we can have systematic involvement and feedback of the civil society. So my team has been instructed to give the utmost priority to seek agreement with the EPA countries on a joint platform like this. And pending this agreement, nothing prevents us from going ahead with what we do here today and other meetings. And the third and final reason why I'm so happy to be here with you today is that we are here to talk about how we can ensure together that this agreement that we have delivers the benefits of the people it intends to help in the EU, but here in the SADC countries. And the objectives is to hear from you. What are the challenges that might have prevented or could prevent in the future the EPA to deliver these concrete benefits? What needs to be done? What are the risks? How can we eliminate them? How can we maximize the positive impacts? Because we do have a common goal: create prosperity for people in Southern Africa and Europe. Trade is a vital component in any successful development strategy. Whether here in Africa, in China, in India, in Brazil, exports have been crucial to reduce poverty over the last decades, and of course Southern Africa is no exception. And EPAs like the ones we discussed today does create opportunities for workers, for consumers, for entrepreneurs, and that will help us to rebuild struggling communities across our continents. So what we ask you this afternoon to do is to launch a reflection on how these provisions included in the EPA can help to create those possibilities. But that doesn't stop there, of course, because even the most die-hard free traders acknowledge that trade agreements give us other questions to answer as well: sustainable development. And we have to assess what are the risks generated by EPAs for labor and social rights, environmental protection, and how these risks can be eliminated or mitigated. We need companies, we need environmental campaigners, we need trade unions, we need human rights advocates to be closely involved in this monitoring. Your ideas, your input, your experience, your ways forward on the implementation of this will only make it stronger and more effective. So if we do all these things, this EU-SADC EPA will have a great chance of becoming a landmark deal for people on both sides. I have high expectations here, not only on the content, but also on the process. And we will take, I have my team here, we will take good note of all the suggestions, all the conclusions, all the recommendations this afternoon, with the purpose of assessing them and to discuss between the EU and the SADC EPA parties. And I hope that we can organize this kind of meeting every year, and next year in the presence also of EU civil society organizations, so that we can create a joint platform and learn from each other and exchange those ideas. So that's why I'm really thrilled to be here today, but now I'm looking forward to hear your input, and I will closely follow the discussions this afternoon. So thank you everybody who has been involved in organizing this. Thank you for your kind attention, and looking forward to the rest of the afternoon.